Okay, how about as an investment? How's it working out that you own a home? We all know, of course, and at SRI we've tracked very closely the recession and the effects that the recession has had on New Yorkers in many different dimensions. So we asked people, do you think that the value of your home has increased, stayed the same, or decreased over the last year? Maybe I should do a test and have everybody guess. We like to do that around the office. But in this case, 34% of respondents said that they believe that the value of their home had decreased over the last year, so slightly more than 1/3. 21%, a sizable number, say that even over the last year, I think the value of my home has increased. Men tended to be more negative than women in their appraisal of the value of their home over the last year. Older, longtime residents also more negative. Our friends in the suburban areas of New York City were far and away the most negative. There, 54%, a majority, felt as though the value of their home had declined over the last year, while only 16% thought it had increased. Interestingly, our friends here in upstate New York flip-flopped on this question. Here, a small plurality, 25%, say that, you know what, I think the value of my home has increased over the last year, while only 19% feel as though it had decreased over the last year. So a very significant difference in sentiment between upstaters and especially those homeowners in the suburban areas of New York City. Looking forward over the next year, what do you think is going to happen over the next 12 months? Increase or decrease or stay the same? So here we see that there is definitely some light in terms of the sentiment of homeowners relative to their home values. 32%, now a plurality, feel as though the value of my home, I think, will increase over the next 12 months. So they're predicting that over the next year, they'll see an increase. Only 18% continue to believe that we'll see a decrease. Still, I mean, those of you doing the quick math, 50% to their left, those people tend to think that values are going to remain relatively constant over the next year. Then we asked them to project out a little bit longer term window. How about over 5 years? You know, we did that question to measure long-term confidence. Is real estate a good investment? Here we find that over the next 5 years, 69%, so nearly 7 out of every 10 homeowners say, I think my home will increase in value over the next 5 years. So the 5-year outlook is quite strong. A very small 9% believe that the value of their home will decrease in a 5-year window. And even if we go back and we look at each of the subgroups who talked about whether or not their home had increased, stayed the same, or decreased over the past year, each of those subgroups say that over the next 5 years, a vast majority of each of those groups think that over a 5-year period, they'll see increases. We asked people a general question. Do you think that your home is an asset that will increase in value over time? Not surprisingly, 85% of people agreed with that across every single demographic group. There is some hesitancy, though, let's be honest. Has your home turned out to be the investment that you had hoped it would be? Although a majority says yes, 63% say yes, there is a significant group, 29%, who say no. It just hasn't worked out as well as I had hoped. Obviously, those people resonate within the group of individuals who said that they've seen values decrease over the last year. The strongest disappointment by far is amongst our friends in the New York suburbs. There we're seeing 36% who say that they think their home has turned out to be the investment they had hoped, as opposed to 55% who at this point in time are saying not. So in a relative sense, we can see a significant difference between the state as a whole, upstate, and the suburbs. The suburbs have been hit clearly the hardest. Despite all that, where do you think you ought to put your money? Now I'll give you some investment advice, or the New Yorkers will give you some investment advice. Overall, do you think that a home is a better or worse investment when compared to the stock market? 81% of New Yorkers, 84% of homeowners, 74% of those people who don't own a home said, I think a home is a better place to put my money than the stock market. Only 11% of respondents indicated the stock market. Let's take a look at a few of the issues that homeowners, and this really kind of resonates with this idea that Dave mentioned as far as the fabric of life in New York State. We at SRI are acutely interested in the bread and butter issues that affect every single one of us here in New York State. First off, we'll start with kind of a light one, chores around the house. We find that a large percentage of people, 78%, say, I'll use the word say, that they look forward to working on projects around the house. The highest percentage among that group is upstaters. So upstaters, even greater than 78% say, yeah, I look forward to that. But still, a majority of New Yorkers, 57%, say when things around the house break or need to be maintained, I wish I just didn't have to deal with it. So clearly the chores, the fix-it, the home maintenance continues to be a little bit of an obstacle. The sentiment that they don't want to deal with it is higher amongst women than it is amongst men. And yes, that to-do list that we all face is true for all of us. It's not just in my house, it's not just in your house. 85% say there is always something around the house that I need to take care of. On a more serious note, let's talk about the mortgage. We ask people to think about the mortgage payment that they make, and we ask them, to what degree is this true for you? My mortgage payment just takes too big a bite out of my monthly budget. How much of a burden currently amongst respondents is that mortgage payment? Only 36%, so just a little bit more than a third, said absolutely that's true for me. So 36% said my mortgage payment is taking too big a bite out of my monthly budget. 51% said no. 51%, and of that 51%, 38% of the whole said, absolutely, I'm fine with my mortgage payment, I've got it worked out. So amongst a representative sample of New Yorkers, we're not seeing a panic right now over being able to afford the mortgage payment. That said, I probably, again, will not surprise anyone that meeting the mortgage is much more of a burden on young respondents 18 to 49. Also, those that are in their home less than 10 years. In both of those cases, there's a small plurality who say the mortgage is taking too big a bite. Again, the suburbs are struggling with making their mortgage payment far more than other areas. In the suburbs, again, we see a plurality, 45% yes, 39% no, that the mortgage is a hardship. That's compared with both New York City and upstate, where we see strong majorities who say no, my mortgage payment is not currently causing me a financial hardship. On a couple of mortgage-related issues that we took a look at, we polled the question of whether or not people support the mortgage interest remaining to be a tax-deductible deduction. There we found overwhelming support that we continue to be allowed to deduct the interest on our home mortgage. 84% of New Yorkers, 91% of owners. But you can see that even amongst those people who do not currently own a home, there continues to be overwhelming support for the mortgage interest deduction. Closer issue is that of whether or not New Yorkers believe the federal government should do more to assist homeowners that are having difficulty making their mortgage payments. There we see a majority, 56%, who believe that to be the case, as opposed to 29% opposed to the government offering help to homeowners struggling to make their mortgage. Support is stronger amongst renters, low-income people, and upstaters for that support coming from the government for homeowners struggling to make their mortgage. Amongst homeowners themselves, there is not majority support, but plurality support, 45% to 40% on that particular question. Then we come to the issue that I think is a little bit more of a political issue currently in our state, that of being real estate taxes. We see far more concern amongst homeowners relative to real estate taxes than we did their mortgage. 79%, 8 out of 10, say that paying my real estate taxes is taking a bigger piece of my budget each year. Only 16% disagree. Clearly, again, we see the highest negative reaction to real estate taxes in the suburbs at 86%, followed very, very closely by upstate at 84%.